Hello, I'm Julie Swenson, Managing Director of Forward Theater Company in Madison, Wisconsin.
And I'm Mike Fisher, Milwaukee based theater writer and dramaturg.
And I'm Jen Ophoff-Gray, founder and artistic director of Forward Theater Company. And this is Theater Forward, a monthly conversation about theater from a local, regional, and national perspective. From Madison to Manhattan, we're excited to share insights into our own company while exploring issues surrounding theater in the Midwest and around the country. Welcome to episode 120 of Theater Forward.
That's a good number, 120.
Sure is. So in this episode, we are going to be talking about the world around us, or perhaps more accurately, the country around us, and how what is happening in our country is impacting us as arts makers, arts producers, arts leaders. This is going to be maybe one of our more free-flowing conversations. But again, and I think I said this in a recent episode, the whole purpose of this podcast was to take some of the conversations that we have around our office about what's happening in our field or in our community or in our country and how it is impacting us in the work that we do, and to put those conversations into this podcast to, sort of open the curtain on how we do what we do. And there's a lot going on right now that we are talking about that is either already impacting us or that we can feel the impacts looming. And we felt like we should talk about it. So some of it is in the realm of funding and governmental support for the arts. Some of it's in the realm of free speech, how we conduct the work we do. Some of it's in the realm of efforts that most arts groups do to increase the access, diversity, inclusion of the work that we do. And all of that is feeling a little more tenuous, perhaps. Not perhaps. It is all definitely more tenuous than it was 6 months ago. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I think let's start from the sort of most obvious headline grabbing impact for the arts, which is federal funding, specifically through the NEA, and some of the new restrictions that have been imposed, which are now subject to some lawsuits. That's where we'll start.
It's, I sort of hate that I think all of us have sort of just been dreading having to even have this conversation because the news is just unremittingly grim. I mean, if you have not been aware of this, I'm hard pressed to believe anybody listening to this podcast is not aware. Musk's Doge has moved forward with cutting 80% of NEH and through that NEA grants. 40% of the NEH's money flows to states directly. In a state like Wisconsin, where there's a disproportionately small percentage of accompanying state and local monies. We've talked many times on this podcast about where we rank on that. That money plays a disproportionately large role. And in conjunction with that, it has been made very clear in terms of a compliance page that's now going to be attached to all grants that unless you certify in a grant application for some of these monies that you are not complying with DEI initiatives, you will not even be considered eligible for those grants. So that's the sort of, I'm leading by putting the news out there because I want to leave to the two of you figuring out what the hell we're supposed to do about it in terms of at least getting started. It's just bad.
Yeah, and I
It's
hope that oh, sorry, go ahead, Julie.
no, I was going to say yes. It's just bad. I mean, a really macabre silver lining of that is that we receive, because we are 50th of 50 states in government funding to the arts. Um, when we sign or when we refuse to sign, that we won't be we will continue to participate in DEI initiatives. Uh, it is not as significant to us as it will be to many of our peer companies around the country.
Yeah, I think that for contextualizing this for folks listening, and again, this may be familiar news or known news, but what is really nauseating about the current situation is on top of the fact that um, they are saying that this funding for the arts in our country is now going to come with these strings attached that I think many of us would find morally repellent. Uh, it is also the sheer lawlessness that funds that were already allocated to nonprofit groups are now not being paid. So you have taken small community serving nonprofits, told them under a previous administration that this money is coming to you. Those groups have then spent that money knowing
Mhm.
that it's coming from the federal government, which you should be able to count on. And now are being told, nope, never mind, you aren't getting it. So it is, uh, it is just so, yeah, I'll come back, nauseating to think of the peer organizations that we know that made financial decisions based on a promise from the federal government that has now been reneged on. And it is disheartening. And yeah, Julie, to your point, when we think about specifically for forward, less than 1% of our budget comes from government funding at any level of the government. Um, I don't know yet. There are lawsuits. We have not yet heard from our state arts board whether any granting from them is going to come with those kinds of strings attached. We have to be prepared for the fact that it very well
It might.
may, given that you know most of the money they have is what's coming from the federal government. Um, if it comes down to it, and we have to say no to that, we will. But there are so many organizations that are going to be in a really, really, really tough spot. And what do you do? What do you do if your organization's ability to survive and your ability to fill up to serve your mission and to serve your community needs that money? If you go away, if you say no to it, what do you do?
Well, and there's a penumbra around this, which, and I think that this organization proudly has always subscribed to the idea that an injury to one is an injury to
Yeah.
all. And I think in terms of our programming and the things we do around our programming, we've also taken a broader view of culture than just what we put on stage. And so it's the stuff in relation to this that is equally horrific. I mean, within one day of, I think it was the day before the NEH and NEA cuts were announced, there was an executive order dismantling the Institute of Museum of Library Services
Mhm.
completely, not even just sort of a partial cut. And just to get a sense of what this means, both for the Wisconsin humanities and just speaking of Madison directly, organizations that get money from that include the Madison Children's Museum, the Wisconsin Historical Society, the Veterans Museum, the Chazen Museum, the Olbrich Gardens. Madison Public Library's entire arts learning program was funded with money from those things. These are all programs, and we have partnered with the library. We have partnered with the Chazen before. I mean, these are organizations that are part and parcel of what we do in Madison as part of building a thriving community in which, learning and the way in which our learning is related to this other kind of learning is all happening as one sort of ball of wax. So you have those cuts on top of this. Yeah, maybe we ourselves, with the incredibly amazing community support that we have and with the lack of funding that exists in Wisconsin anyway from the public dollars, we'll manage to get through this. But it's in relation to our sibling organizations out there also trying to sort of spread the good news. In terms of culture, that the overall devastating impact of this starts to take shape.
Well,
Well,
Mike,
and
just as you're oh, sorry, Jen.
it's
Just
okay.
just as you're saying about these other, institutions here in Madison, all around the country, we are the beneficiaries of individuals who believe in what we're doing, and they believe in a strong community of Madison, and if there are entire institutions losing money, and lots of it, millions and millions of dollars, that's going to be hard for an individual to decide where they're going to put their money because we will have so many pots that need to be filled. And then, we look at the stock market and things that's tanking at a point when we are working on getting donations and getting subscriptions, and we've got all these incredible people who will support us, want to support us, but the needs of the community are going to be so great. I I wonder where they will put their money.
Well, I mean, that was exactly the point I was gonna make, Julie, is that over the years, so many of the sources of funding for nonprofit arts, we talk a lot about the fact that, for us, it's about 50-50 from ticket revenue and then other other sources of income that help pay for what we do. And that's, the percentage changes organization to organization, but no nonprofit arts group covers all their costs from ticket sales. And so, for
What?
I know, but for a healthy organization, you want a diversity of sources that the other funding is coming from: government funding, corporate funding, foundation and grant funding, individual donors, and then there are other income streams as well. And at not just at Forward, but for a lot of other organizations in our area, we've seen, fine, we're 50th in the nation on government support. Great. So that can't really count on that. So little foundation support,
Yep.
especially as so many foundations turn what they fund to basic needs in times like this. So that pool feels like it's smaller and smaller. Corporate, yeah, that keeps shrinking and shrinking, which means that more and more the survival of arts groups is on the backs of individual donors. And yeah, Julie, our donors, they've been incredible,
Hmm.
but the demands on them are going to continue to increase. And if the economy keeps being purposefully tanked the way that it has been, the resources that they have are going down. And so where does that leave all of us? And I'm not thinking about Forwards, but I'm thinking about all nonprofits, the whole community, the resource drain that is happening right now. The need is going up, and the resources to address the need are going down.
Right.
What
Well,
happens next?
and sort of in conjunction with that, sort of, and this is the second piece of this that Julie alluded to earlier, and I think Jen, you did as well, is the free speech issue. So, the administration has made very clear, even in conjunction with cutting NEA grants, that they will continue to put money into things like projects honoring the 250th birthday of the United States, which, hey, I'm all for, you want to do another production of 1776, I'm there. I mean, there's reason to do that. But it doesn't make sense to be sort of funneling money in that way. Or it's the things like Trump and President Trump, in announcing this, also talked about reissuing an executive order from his first term, sort of taking NEH money and putting it toward a National Garden of American Heroes, which is going to include statues honoring, wait for it, Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett, Billy Graham, Ronald Reagan, and Antonin Scalia. Now, this is not a political statement on my part. This is just sort of a head scratcher as to whether, when you're pulling money out of organizations that are delivering to a community, this is where you want to place it. Instead, it's cuts to the Smithsonian in conjunction with an executive order saying that, quote, all improper, divisive, or anti-American ideology, end quote, be removed from the Smithsonian, with the executive order specifically targeting the National Museum of African American History and Culture, and specifically targeting the American Women's History Museum, because it is going to be celebrating male athletes, quote unquote, male athletes participating in women's sports. So, it's both the money that's being pulled away. It's also the very strong message that if you want money at all, what little of it there will be that's left, you better play by our rules or you're not going to see it, which is really for any artistic organization, regardless of what its politics are, regardless of what the administration is in terms of liberal or conservative or whatever, to be told what to do or how to program things in that way is, sure, on some level, always part of the relationship between any arts organization and its donor base, right? You need to be sensitive to your audience, but it's also sort of directly prescribing what you can put on stage, what you can put forward in terms of an exhibit in a museum. in ways that are really scary because they are not allowing artists the freedom that they need in order to be able to create.
Yeah. The NEA thing in particular, um, and full caveat, the call for grant applications for support of projects that look at America's 250 predates this administration. That was something that the NEA had created as a funding pool a while back. And I'm with you, Mike. Like I think there's the opportunity for some really exciting art that could be created on that theme. I think that what makes it so frustrating is that that was all that was left. There were all these other funds that were celebrating projects that reach underserved communities, that focused on telling diverse stories, that did all of these other wonderful things, and all of that funding was pulled, um, and kind of leaving this one thing, and this one thing where we're only going to fund applications that now align with our very narrow view of what talking about America 250 can look like. A year ago, I was very excited about that America 250 fund because I was like, oh, there are some really cool projects we can do looking at the idea of what America is and can be. Um, all of those ideas I had are not the kinds of things that would get funding now. Um, so I just wanted to sort of add that clarification, and so it's partly what exists and what they will fund, um, being changed and sort of perverting the idea of that to begin with.
I feel like my cortisol levels are very high right now. I have a
Yeah,
flight, fight or flight. I might just turn off my mic and go back to bed.
yeah,
I can't imagine that people hearing this aren't feeling the same. Woo, yeah, this
yeah.
is not good.
Well, and the way it impacts individual artists too. Like I want to talk about how the current environment um, impacts them as well. Like you think about a situation like the Kennedy Center is facing, where the president sort of took it over, made himself chair of the board, um, sort of cut a lot of initiatives that organization was doing. This is an arts organization that is sort of founded to serve the American public, um, and left. It's a booking organization too. It's a venue that brings in artists from all over. And then what you saw is all of these artists having to decide: am I going to go, or am I going to cancel my appearance? If I go, am I going to speak to the moment we're in, or am I not? And especially in our world where everything is a very quick and hot social media conversation, um, the complexity and pain of those decisions, I think, gets oversimplified. Because is it better that W. Kamau Bell went and actually talked about what's going on, or would it be better if he'd canceled? Is it better that you cancel and say, I'm not going to be a part of this? And knowing that there's a lot of artists that work for that organization who are losing their jobs. It is so complex. It is so nuanced. In our social media environment, in our sort of quick takes society, I see so many times that individual artists get jumped on for making whatever decision they make to go and do something at an institution that is maybe dealing with complicated struggles like the Kennedy Center is, or to not go in order to not appear to be in support of problematic issues. Boy, I'm couching this in some very like soft language. Problematic issues. My God, this is fascism. But sometimes you go anyway because you know that there's a lot of artists that work for that organization who are otherwise losing their jobs. And I don't think any artist is making any of these decisions lightly. Right.
This goes that you're reminding me, Jen, of a few years ago when Jeremy Harris pulled one of his plays from the Center Theater Group in Los Angeles because of the way in which the season had been programmed around mostly non global majority playwrights. And he was very clear, and I loved this from him, saying, everybody's mileage is going to vary in terms of other playwrights and what they can or they can't do. People have families, people have commitments, people have whatever. The fact that I am in a position to do this is not to denigrate those artists who can't or who won't or who have made a different calculation in terms of what they do. And I think on the one hand, I will acknowledge freely, I am disappointed that there has not been more of an outcry from the artists in the world. I should say in the United States, actually, world artists are being much more vocal about whether they want to come here or not than some of our own artists are being about what they're dealing with. I've been disappointed in that, but I also recognize that this is people's livelihoods. People are afraid. And also, there's the calculus about whether maybe you make more of an impact by staying and then coming out. Where I have less tolerance is when you're dealing with an organization. So I think, and here artists really did stand up and hammered the Academy when it issued an incredibly mealy mouthed statement following the severe beating of one of the two Palestinian directors of No Other Land, which, by the way, is a fantastic film. If you get a chance to see it, about the what the Israeli army was doing in the West Bank, and and artists said, this is one of ours who just won an Academy Award. And you're issuing this statement, which basically says people are going to come at this from different viewpoints. Well, sure. And that's a legitimate thing. This is a complicated issue. But when somebody's getting beaten up, you stand up for them as a fellow artist who is being beaten up by the by settlers and the Israeli army, captured on video. There's no doubt about it. And to its credit, although it was being pressured, the Academy came back and issued a second statement apologizing for the first statement. And those are the kinds of things I think we do have to see. Similarly, the difference between Columbia and Harvard. These are organizations as opposed to individuals. I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for Columbia's decision in terms of rolling over and getting nothing for it, by the way, in terms of trying to exceed or not exceed to the administration's demands. Whereas Harvard has, to my mind, and yes, they're sitting on a gajillion billion endowment, although most of it's restricted. But for them to stand up and say this just goes against the heart of what it means to be an academic institution was heroic. And I hope that they will, as the pressure is brought to bear on them, stick to that position. So when we're talking about organizations in our own realm, I want more. I mean, the Theater Communications Group has been great in terms of criticizing the censorship and violation of free speech that they see in the way in which all of this is being administered. To ask individual artists who maybe finally getting a production of a play, or who are hoping that their play dealing with controversial issues might be able to sort of surface some things that would otherwise be ignored. That's a completely different issue. And you're right, Jen, on social media, that kind of nuance and that kind of compassion or attempt with curiosity to understand where people are coming from is sorely lacking.
And I think I would just add to that, Mike, and I agreed. Um, Another place where the nuance comes into play is for organizations, be they theaters or universities, that don't have the resources of a Harvard. And uh,
Fair.
yeah, I'm an alum, and I'm actually proud. I'm not always a proud alum of Harvard. I am
You
this
should be
week.
very proud right now.
Um,
Yeah.
I signed my petitions to get them to do this. Uh, but when I look at smaller organizations, small colleges, small theaters, even some of the big theaters, it's not it's not just about the organization, it's about all the people you employ
Mhm.
and all of those people whose livelihood depends on you. And it is defiance comes with cost.
Yes.
And you have to weigh the cost not on just on yourself, but on everybody who you have, who your work supports. And it is our own version of the McCarthy era. It is our own um uh moral dilemma of uh what is the right choice. What is the right choice when people depend on you? Is it the moral defiance o- or capitulation. And capitulation is a terrible, terrible thing. The word sounds terrible. And it also sometimes comes along with protecting people. So I don't mean like, oh, we're all going to sign things that say we don't believe in DEI anymore. But I also understand organizations that are trying to fly under the radar in hopes that they don't have to choose between uh, standing up and throwing away their values or losing the ability to take care of their people. I
Well,
understand it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, very well said. I guess I do think, and DEI is a great example. There are certain things it's fine maybe for the reasons that you're pointing out to try and fly under the radar, but there's certain things where there are lines that you just
Hmm.
can't, to my mind, cross. And at some point, if what it means to protect people is that you're betraying your fundamental values and signing a statement saying you're not going to continue to comply with DEI would be, and I know that's not what you're saying, Jen,
No.
but that would be one, right? I mean, that's a place where an organization has to say, yes, this could mean that people lose their jobs, including me as the director of this
Yeah.
organization, but we have to stand by certain fundamental principles. We have to say that U.S. history is a
Yeah.
thing that has to be talked about with reference to all the people who have suffered, or else you're just telling lies.
Right. I
Um,
agree with you. I think I'm sort of in defense of some of the organizations that we maybe haven't heard from.
sure.
And the not hearing from them may be about trying to avoid trying to put off having to make that decision as long as possible. And I can understand that if it's
And
coming from
this
a
is
protect our people.
we're talking in April too. This has happened so quickly. Yeah, I mean, if we've got this conversation in another couple of years and we're wondering where some of the bigger voices in the arts are, then I think we've got maybe some room for criticism. But right now, it is so quick and so fast, and things are happening. It feels like minute by minute that I do believe that organizations will find their voice and find their direction and what they want to do in response to what's happening. I am hopeful that will happen. I am hopeful that there is a stronger voice out there, and a voice that will drown out some of the other things that are going on. I believe that people are um, settling down, figuring out what they want to say, and we're going to hear it. As Harvard does, as now a couple law firms are saying, "Wait, hold on. What are we doing? No, no." It it took like it's this horrible reaction, this quick gut reaction, and now let's take just a minute and regroup and have our statement and our voice, and it's going to come.
I kind of love that, and this goes back, Julie, to sort of at the beginning of the conversation when you were saying, yeah, the silver lining of Wisconsin getting so little money is it becomes a little bit easier for us to find a way forward, should I say, in terms of what we do, and maybe in a weird way, it gives us as a state and organizations like ours an opportunity to lead because we've already had to be so imaginative in terms of where we think about funding. It's already made us sensitive in the best ways to having conversations with our community. It's made us more aware than maybe other organizations have had to be of that elephant in the room, which is that the arts are just a luxury, which we know is not true, and we have sort of lived that value in terms of everything that we have done. And maybe it will mean, to your point, in terms of resistance, you'll get more organizations like, I mean, this is just something from Electric Literature. It's a nonprofit that's been getting NEH money since 2016. And they said the other day, we stand with trans writers and readers. We are no longer going to apply for NEH money or grants. We are going to figure out other ways to do it, and that we are going to raise a community that believes in our values and that wants to support us, even knowing we're not going to get that money. That's electricliterature.com if you're keeping score. It's a fantastic website. You should check it out. But I mean, there are places out there that are standing up and fighting back already, and there will be more.
Yeah. I I kind of can't believe that we've reached at least one moment in this conversation where we're a little optimistic maybe isn't the right word, but not despairing, which makes me want to say that we end the conversation here, because otherwise we're going to go on for a few more hours. And Julie, yes, everyone's cortisol level is going to plummet again. So I think we will take a pause in this conversation. I have a feeling we will come back to it in a future episode, but we will say that is all for this episode of Theater Forward, a conversation about theater in Wisconsin, the Midwest, and America. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jen Uphoff Gray.
And I'm Julie Swenson.
I'm Mike Fisher. Our podcast is produced, as always, by Scott Hayden, and you can follow us or share your thoughts on Facebook. That's Theater Forward, theater, as always, spelled with an ER.
And if you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe to us. And we'd love to hear what you think. Please leave a comment.
We are very grateful to have you listening, and we will be back soon for another Theater Forward conversation.